Bernstein Show. Here's Ed.
Hey, welcome to our show today. I'm really going to confuse you today because I have a guest whose last name is also Bernstein, J.B. Bernstein. And if it sounds familiar, by the way, I should disclose, we're not related, right?
We're not related.
Right.
I
Full
wish.
Disclosure.
Are you adopting anybody?
Well, I mean, I can tell from your hairstyle that we're not related. But J.B. Bernstein, I mean, a sports agent and very, very popular because you had a movie really based on part of your life.
True.
The $1 Million Arm.
Yes.
Now, I have a lot of questions to ask you about the $1 Million Arm, but for those of our viewers who haven't seen it or have forgotten it, because it's been a couple of years, let's do a quick little trailer on $1 Million Arm.
Sure.
I'm J.B. Bernstein. I'm a sports agent.
Hey.
Who's that?
She's my neighbor. Not my type.
Why? Because she's not a model. Yeah, stay away from that.
Right now, I'm on the verge of a huge break.
Without this deal, we're done. What's going on here? Don't tell me you signed a contract with these guys.
This is just business.
Guess what? We're out of money. I mean, I don't know what else to do, JB.
Hey, how fast do they pitch in cricket? I think I cracked this.
It's called $1 Million Arm. We find the first Major League Baseball player from India.
Like being on the road?
Words cannot express.
Ray, how are you going to know if anyone can throw if you keep your eyes shut all day?
I can hear it.
Really?
That was about a 43. Bingo.
We have our finalists.
Welcome to America, boys.
Okay. All right, guys.
Okay, now, that was a result of a book?
So
Yeah.
what happened was I did this contest in India back in 2007. And I found these two kids, and everybody thought I was an idiot until the Pirates signed them. And then all of a sudden I'm a genius and the contest works. But, you know.
But hold on.
So what happened
It
is.
was a contest, but was it going to be like a reality show?
It is, yeah, exactly.
Explain what the concept was.
So my thought was Yao Ming is the greatest marketing success in sports. He's made more money by far than anybody else. And it's because the Chinese nationalism got behind him. So you had billions of people who wanted to buy the jerseys and the company products where they gave him tons of money. And so I said, how can I recreate that? So India was where we thought about. And we said we need 1 billion people, so it's India. And they play cricket. And so I said, man, how are we going to find these kids? And it just hit me, and it's always embarrassing to admit this, but I am an American Idol guy. I love American Idol. It's my show. And so I thought, I was like, wait, what if we just take the microphone out of the kids' hands, give them a baseball, get rid of the judges, and just use a radar gun, and boom, I got American Idol. Now I just have to convince a TV station in India to air a baseball show, which we did. And so it started as a reality show where we saw 38,000 kids in our first year. And we found 2 of them that came and actually got signed by the Pirates. And so now, fast forward, Disney options the rights and does nothing for half a decade. You know, it's 2013, and all of a sudden I get a call saying, hey, we're actually going to make this movie. You should get a book agent and write a book so it could come out at the same time. So it was actually Disney was being my agent, and they told me, so the book and the movie came out at the exact same time.
Right. But you had some difficulty, if I recall, in India, right? Didn't you almost get arrested there? I mean, what was that like? I mean,
so India, I fell in love with, and I wanted to make sure this movie wasn't like Slumdog Millionaire, which I felt gave kind of a negative impression of just maybe one small part of India. And I've been to over 100 cities in India, more than most Indians had ever been to, and I've seen the religious sides of it and all the beautiful parts and the bad parts. And so I wanted the movie to showcase all of India. But yeah, there were some, so like anything when you're going into another country, and I'm a dumb American, and I made lots of dumb American mistakes, but there's a great cartoon that Disney made that's up on my website that shows me almost getting arrested in a Calcutta prison for just trying to set up my stupid contest in the middle of what I found out later was a military-owned park. and found myself on the Air Force Base with Colonel Q. Shelling out some rupees. Yeah, no doubt about it. But I was able to avoid military prison, thankfully.
So whatever ultimately happened with those two young men? They got signed by the Pirates. Did they ever play professionally?
So great question. So there were two guys. The lefty, which everybody always asks about because he's the one who threw very funny. He had like a very funny motion and kind of stood there. So he played for 4 years in the Pirates minor league system and was really good and probably would have made it up, but hurt his left arm and ended up being out of sports.
And that's the one on the
guy in the middle.
Right?
The guy in the middle.
Okay.
So he ended up going into the gym, and now he is in the WWE, and he's a top-level guy in WWE as an Indian wrestler in the main event. The righty, Dinesh, works for me in India. So he has a family farm that he runs, and he also helps with the contest, which is ongoing. And he goes from village to village, motivating other kids and telling his story and getting kids to follow their dreams. The most unique thing about $1 Million Arm was that these kids don't have dreams like us. When we're growing up, you could dream to be anything. They were either going to be their dad, or if they're really lucky, maybe they'd get into the military. But that's it. There's no dreaming like you could be anything. And so their story is an inspiration because there's 700 million people in these villages who now are thinking, hey, maybe, what can I do? You know, this kid can pitch. What can I do? Am I good at science? So to think about activating that human capital, it became a much bigger social experiment to me than originally just my search for Yao Ming.
Did you have any idea? I mean, did you have something lined up at the Pirates beforehand? I mean, how did that work? I mean, you're calling whoever you know over at the Pittsburgh Pirates, saying, "Hey, I have these guys who never played baseball before from India, but they can throw the ball pretty damn hard."
Wow, you would be a terrible sports agent. That's a horrible pitch. That's not what you say. So what we did was we did a tryout, and I said, "Hey, I went all through India, and these are the two best pitchers in all of India." I didn't mention that they didn't know any rules of baseball or anything like that, or how to field, and we did a tryout. The first tryout was a terrible failure, and for those who've seen the movie, it's kind of a tough time for me because at this point, these kids have become like my adopted sons.
You're responsible for
and
them.
I've blown this big chance for them. So ultimately, the way I got the Pirates and a couple other teams to come out to the second tryout was, number one, they weren't there for the disaster of the first tryout, and then two, I had to beg, borrow, and steal a little bit and tell them, hey, these are the two hottest kids from India, and maybe trade a couple of tickets to some football stuff to some of the baseball guys. But ultimately, they were in their second tryout really triumphant. So at the time, I didn't think about it like a movie, but when I look back at it, I'm like, oh, of course, that's how a Disney movie would end. They blow it, and then they get it.
Yeah,
of course.
Exactly. Let's go back a little bit further in your past. Like, I mean, you're in college. Are you thinking about being a sports agent? What are your goals at that time? I know you liked business, right?
So if I had known sports agent was a job, I would have been chasing this from the day I was born. I am custom made to be a sports agent, but I didn't know it was a job. And look, when we were kids, I don't think anybody would have assumed, like, if Lawrence Taylor had a problem with the team, he would just call up the owner or the coach, and they would, whatever they're going to pay him, you would figure, like, it never occurred to me somebody needed to be into that negotiation. So I chased a normal business career, and like any kid getting out of business school in the late 80s, I was trying to get a job with Procter & Gamble, and I was able to get a job in brand management there. And that was kind of my second business school. And so I had no inclination of sports. I was working on Downy fabric softener. Nothing could be further from sports. My focus groups were about women and their towels being too waterproof from using too much softener and like that.
But it was marketing.
Yeah, it was.
Right? I mean, you can translate that right into sports, I would think.
I would say to you that my single biggest advantage by becoming an agent was doing that first, because I saw an athlete as product X.
Right.
So, if I can get Downy to a 99% household penetration, I can do it with an athlete or with a team or whatever.
All right. Okay, so from Procter & Gamble, is that when you subsequently went to Upper Deck? Upper Deck at that time was in the trading card business.
Yep.
We all grew up as young men, some women, collecting these cards. Upper Deck, was the leader in the field. What was your job there?
So again, total dream opportunity where one of my business school professors knew a guy named Richard McWilliam. And he said, I got this young kid at Procter & Gamble. He's like, he can come, he can do all kinds of stuff for you, business development, he'll figure stuff out. He's just good at research and stuff, and you'll like him. And I met Richard, and he hired me as business development. I can't remember we didn't really have titles. There were like 10 people in the company. And we did $180 million at wholesale in our first 6 months of business. And we're immediately breaking ground on a new facility for printing. And like the company went from 0 to $1 billion in 3 years. So my third business school, I designed over 500 products for the company. I signed licenses with over 800 players, the leagues, the players associations, the soccer teams, and that was really my job, was creating stuff for Pipeline and marketing athletes. So taking what I learned at Procter, taking what I'm learning now about sports, and for the first time ever becoming exposed to something called a sports agent. So now all of a sudden I'm picking up the phone thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to call Mickey Mantle. They want to sign Mickey Mantle. This is great. And I pick up the phone and some guy named Roy True answers. And I'm like, who the hell are you? And that's how I figured out that there were sports agents in the world. Oh. And so when I left Upper Deck, still wasn't thinking about becoming an agent, and then just kind of backed into it at that point.
So how does that work with trading cards? You get somebody's rookie card. I mean, I assume they're not a star yet. I mean, they get minimal amount of money, and then what happens as their career, becomes amazing and it becomes so valuable a commodity? Does the amount of money that the Upper Deck have to pay increase?
Well, absolutely. I mean, so the amount of money the card companies pay are somewhat separate from the value of the card, but there's no doubt that obviously if you're Wayne Gretzky, you're going to want a lot more money than a hockey player no one knows. But what you're talking about is really interesting, because when you think about trading cards, so I didn't think about this until I got to Upper Deck, of thinking about it really like an asset class, the same way you'd think about Picasso's or any of these other really rare things that people pay a lot of money for. Someone just paid $7 million for a Babe Ruth card. That blew my mind. I said, it's in terrible condition, but there's only a couple in the world, and so the collectors have driven value. So from 2008 forward, the trading card market the top 500 cards have never been below the S&P 500, and currently they're trading at almost a 1,200% premium to the S&P 500.
And was the Babe Ruth card, is that the most valuable card purchased?
That and the Mickey Mantle rookie. There's a Honus Wagner from like 19-something that there's been a few around 4 to 2 million. But what's been crazy has been, just like every market, technology, fractionalization. You can buy a piece of that Babe Ruth or shares in that Babe Ruth trading card, just like you can buy stock slices.
Now, right?
Yeah, and it's so technology is changing that industry at an incredible rate.
So, but you mentioned Wayne Gretzky because you did something very unusual when you worked for the card company regarding Wayne Gretzky. You had an idea. What was that?
So, up until Wayne was going to break the all-time goal record, for those who are hockey fans, to me this is one of the most amazing accomplishments. It took Gordie Howe 33 years to set this record. Wayne was going to do it in 16. It was just that's just not even believable, right? So Wayne, I decided we should celebrate the same way they celebrate the Super Bowl. And he said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, because they usually come out with this stuff at the end of the season. I said, no. We're going to stop the game. We're going to give them the puck. We're going to roll a Rolls Royce out onto the ice. And we're going to cut into QVC and do live cut-ins with all of our products. And we're going to commemorate it right as it's happening. Just like, what's the first thing you see after a Super Bowl? The video, the shirt, and the hat. I'm like, how could you not do that for this event? And so that was really the first time they'd ever done what's called now hot market marketing. And so milestone marketing, I kind of became the godfather of it. And so that worked. And like, what other records we got? I'm like, oh, Dan Marino's breaking a record. And then I said, hey, you know what? This is kind of a business. And so I went out on my own to chase it.
And at that time, were you a hockey fan, a football fan, baseball, basketball? What was your love?
You know what? I loved sports growing up. I loved to play them. I loved to watch them. You dream about being in the Stanley Cup or in the MLB and the World Series, and so I was always that big sports fan. I loved it all.
In my mind, sports is really the only true reality show. When you see a reality show on TV, I mean, there's cameras, everybody's kind of acting and they know they're aware of the cameras and they're working the cameras.
Yep.
And you know what the end result's going to be
Yep.
in a reality show. But in sports, it's the only true one where it's happening right in front of you, unfolding.
Well, everybody in every other show you just talked about is getting paid to get ratings. The guys in football are getting paid to get touchdowns.
Right.
And that's the difference, right? Is that they're getting paid to do their job. Everybody else is getting paid to get Instagram hits.
And let's talk about some of the guys you've helped in the football world.
Sure.
Barry Sanders. He amazing running back, ready to break records. And then what happened?
So Barry in his book, what he said was he had just lost the desire to play, and that's a tough game to be in if your heart's not in it. You can get really hurt, and I think he had felt after 10 years. It was sad because, I'm a marketing guy. We had a lot of stuff set up. I mean, the day he retired, the day before, Wheaties had released a box that said "Fuel and Barry Sanders run for the record," 3 million boxes. So it wasn't easy, but I've always been a believer that the athletes are people, and he just felt it was time to move on. There was no chance to win. There's no hard feelings. He works with the team now. He's an assistant to the president. He's been heavily involved. He did the draft pick this year. So, but I think the cool thing about Barry is I had Emmitt Smith and Barry, and Emmitt was selling like crazy. Everybody, as you know, everybody saw Emmitt in every commercial. And Barry, it was hard to get him booked. And I said, I was like, they're both so amazing. He plays for the Lions, no one wants the Lions in the commercial. So I was like, oh, well, how can I make that a positive? And so I'd tell people, I'd say, hey, just like we were talking about before, no one's mad at Barry Sanders. He never beats your team. He puts on a great show and the Bears win. I said, but here's the great thing. September 15th, Barry can be available for your Super Bowl party. Try to get that promise from Emmitt Smith. And it worked great. And so they both had really good marketing careers.
Yeah. Barry Bonds, you seem like you have, I don't even know how to describe these athletes. I mean, they're also well known and all at some level controversial.
Yeah.
Right? Which is part of what you need to do. I mean, when an athlete runs into controversy, there's we were talking before the show about Evander Kane and his personal life and how it may or may not affect the game.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds also, has been a man of a lot of adversity. An incredible athlete.
Yeah.
Who hits 73 home runs in a year? Babe Ruth didn't.
Nobody.
Right.
Yeah. No. I've seen him do things both athletically and philanthropically that are mind-blowing. Unfortunately, the press reluctantly only cover the baseball accomplishments. And look, a lot of the criticism to every player, not just Barry, to any player, is usually somewhat fair. If you don't treat the people who are writing the stories well, you can't expect them to write great stories. That being said, he's probably the most misunderstood athlete of all the guys that I've ever been around, and one of the best friends I've ever had. So we have a weird relationship where I think about him less as his agent and more of a backstop. My job is just to really take care of him and make sure that all the stuff that he's doing off the field was easy and fell into routines that he wanted. It's tough baseball's a tough season, February to November.
Yeah.
It's a long season. Yeah, so to be good in all those games, it's hard to focus on all this other stuff. And so, some guys are better at it than others. But Barry, honestly, one of the greatest marketers I've ever had. All the brands that worked with him loved it. And off the field, one of the biggest hearts that you'll ever see. Yeah.
In today's sports world, how much of of compensation does an athlete make contractually from playing for a team compared to what they make off the field?
Great question. So, obviously, role players that are making, less money, and so they're making less contractually, and then those guys obviously don't have as many opportunities for marketing because the second string offensive lineman or the backup punter is not getting a deal at the car dealership.
Fair enough.
So the marketing usually tends to be top heavy, so it tends to make the rich richer. Where I think most agents differentiate themselves is the guys in a local market who can get the local deals for the guys. So where you get a guy who's going to be with a team for 10 years, even if he's holding the clipboard, hey man, he won the Heisman, he's a backup quarterback for 10 years in, let's say, Miami, and now a guy like Bernie Kosar has a good brand name down there. He's worked with local car dealerships. So if you're a good agent, you can create a nice local market. If Barry Sanders had not been huge nationally, we still would have had things like Bernstein and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan and things within the market that would create a nice portfolio for him because he wanted to activate against that market and be, hey, I'm from here. I'm for the city of Detroit. So sometimes you can create something out of that, but it tends to be top heavy for the marketing.
And then they're paid based on whether it's a local spot or a national spot. And what about when the athletes do something for charity? How does that work?
They rarely. I've never heard of an athlete taking money from a charity. That would be weird. So usually it's a charity they support. It's affected their family some way. And so they say, hey, let's do a golf tournament. Let's do the Ed Bernstein golf tournament because your cousin has whatever. And that's how those things usually evolve. But it's extremely rare. What will happen is a golf tournament like Derek Jeter's, they'll pay all the celebrities to come in. But the sponsors are paying, $100,000 a foursome, so they give the guy $5,000 to come, so it's not a big number. Everybody wants the money to go to the charity.
Right. There's an organization in town that you're very involved in called Tiger 21. What exactly is that?
So Tiger 21 is an organization for high net worth individuals that they face a unique set of challenges and opportunities because of the wealth they've created, and they get together once a month and talk about those unique challenges and opportunities and make better decisions together as a group. But in essence, it's all the stuff that they can't really talk about with anybody else because nobody is going through those type of things that they're going through. And in a lot of cases, it's so that they can be better bosses and understand the employees and what other people are doing with their employees. And so it's helped unify the business community at the top here because it's brought people together that wouldn't normally interact. And now they're sharing best practices, and I think it's really helping the people at the top here, which ultimately helps Las Vegas.
Right, and you kind of run
and
run a Las Vegas part of that?
So originally I wanted to join Tiger, and then there was no group here. And so I said, hey, if it's not good enough for Vegas, it's not good enough for me. And so they allowed us to start a group here. Now we have two groups here. So I run both those groups here in town.
Look, since you've been in Vegas, now we have a hockey team, we have a stadium, an arena, we have a stadium, we have a football team, we have indoor this team, indoor that team.
Vegas Aces, my Aces, we got them all.
But I wanted to ask you, because recently, what was it, the women's basketball, there was some parity now between salary.
Oh, the soccer, yeah.
Or the soccer. How do you feel about that? I mean, I understand the equal pay part of it. But if the fans really are just watching the men's soccer, and that's what's interesting, why would women make the same amount when as an advertiser, maybe I'm paying more to be on men's soccer?
So it's a really interesting and hot topic. So my personal opinion is that there's a difference between the U.S. national teams and pro sports teams. So so when you play for the U.S. soccer team, you're basically saying I'm going to be a lifelong Olympian. You're not going to make a ton of money. And so they should pay the guys and the girls on the U.S. team our tax money the same. Even if, and by the way, I'm not so sure that more people watch the men's U.S. soccer than the women's U.S. soccer. In this one case, the women, I think, have a really strong case. But the flip side of it is when you're on a pro sports team, it should be exactly that, is you can only pay based on the revenue that comes in. If $5 million comes in versus $500 million, those teams are going to have different capacities to pay out. And they should, because that's a business. This is like Olympics, it's like national, it's politics. That those U.S. national teams, even though they compete and make money, it's really about winning the World Cup, right? It's really about winning the Olympics. These people work for the government. Pay them.
Look, I think we have about a minute left.
Okay.
Time is flying by, but I wanted to ask you about the NCAA, because now college athletes can get paid.
Yeah. I love that idea.
Yeah.
I love
You're
it.
a sports agent, you would love it, right?
But I think it should be implemented differently. I think all the money should be paid into trust. I don't think the student athletes should have access to it. I think they should all get a living wage so that they don't have to do anything stupid. They can pay their bills, get a pizza, and all that money should be held in trust so that when they graduate, they have no debt and they've got some money that they've learned about investing a little bit while they're going. So I think it's implemented wrong, but they got to be paid.
I love that idea.
Yeah, well, it teaches them everything they need to know, protects them, and then when they're 21, they get their trust.
Right. So is that a field that sports agents are moving into now?
Oh my God, everybody jumped into it. I'm not getting into that. I feel it's too predatory for me. But if it were going into trust, then I would.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but my dad's name was Jack, and my father never had a middle name. So when he, every time he'd have to sign something, he would sign it J.B. Bernstein. When my kids were growing up, we had a horse at one time. We named the horse J.B.
There we go.
J.B. So
I hope I'm as reliable.
and have as much sense. Thank you so much, J.B. Bernstein. What's next for you? 30 seconds or less.
What's next? Vegas.
Vegas.
I'm looking forward to F1 coming.
Right.
And everything. Dude, we're gonna get a baseball team. It's all about Vegas.
Oh, I love it. Talk to you soon.
You too, buddy.
And see you all next week.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.